You know what's scary? That shit keeps me up at night. 3 words: dead space and 3. This is going to be a fun one to talk about. After the reported failure of Dead Space 2, according to EA, I don't know what crack they are on. The game sold 2 million units in its first week, so taking standard AAA price game for the 7th generation PS3 and Xbox 360 at $59.99, multiplying that by 2 million, you get $119,980,000. Obviously, take away the Xbox and PlayStation, Steam, and the physical retailer tax, which is about 40% of the games being completely removed. Dead Space 2 made around $71,988,000 in its first 2 weeks. And guess what? It sold another 2 million copies within its first year. So if you do the accounting for discounts, the game should have made around $100 million in its first year, and that was the last time it was reported. This game turned a profit, but of course it didn't turn the profit that EA wanted to see, and also apparently the EA might have overspent on management and marketing this game. I have seen all sorts of reports for this game's budget for marketing, anywhere from 10 to 30. I've even seen 60 million. They doubled the budget for marketing, which is insane to me for a game, especially a game that is a survival horror game. I don't know what the fuck they spent it on, but Jesus. The game also received a 90 on Metacritic, meaning it's a Metacritic must play. It joins the elite rank very few games actually get to reach, and basically it means this was in conversation for Game of the Year that year at news sites. I'm not going to spew the shit that EA spat, that Dead Space 2 was a failure, that it didn't meet expectations. Dead Space 2 sold pretty well for a survival horror game, all things considered. It sold basically Resident Evil numbers, and it also was beloved critically. But again, EA wanted RE sales from a game that isn't a Resident Evil game. There's no way that's going to happen with any survival horror game. So EA, of course, saw Dead Space 2 as a failure. If you want to know, probably EA wanted it to sell probably 4 million to 5 million in its first week, and then 10 million in total by the end of the year. Which, yeah, not even all RE games do that. That's not happening. So, when Visceral, obviously ecstatic to the reception of Dead Space 2, they approached EA and asked them, hey, let me make 3. Now, EA obviously wanted to increase the sales of the franchise. So what does any big publisher do when they want to make a franchise sell more copies? Why, copy another game, of course, that was also successful. Enter Resident Evil 5. You cannot talk about Dead Space 3 without talking about Resident Evil 5. Releasing in 2009, a few years prior to Dead Space 2, I genuinely believe EA looked at what RE5 did and believed this is what gamers want in general. Horror players want a co-op action horror game, with the horror being about 50% smaller and in a font you don't recognize, and is completely hidden if you are older than the age of 12. Now, I'm going to say a statement that I think a lot of people might not like. I don't think Resident Evil 5 is a good Resident Evil game. If you don't know, before RE4 released, Capcom wanted to increase the sales of the Resident Evil series because it was starting to stagnate around the time. So they looked at what was popping at the time. Games like Halo 2, GTA, Half-Life 2, MGS3. You might notice something here with all these big games. They were all more focused on action and sort of more, I guess what most people call Hollywood-style action games. And so RE4 turned into what we have now, a more focused RE game on action. And it did so well, Capcom went full hog in RE5 into the action part. Boulder punching man and insane gunfight scenes. And this, RE5, was the anticipated sequel to RE4, the most beloved RE game behind Resident Evil 2, and it's arguable which one's more important for the Resident Evil franchise. But RE5 was the follow-up to that. And RE5 still, to this day, I did double check and I'm pretty sure it still is the best selling RE game of all time, singly. Obviously, I think RE4 has sold more copies, but man, you can play that shit everywhere. But at the time, RE5 was the best-selling game in the franchise in its first year. It sold like hotcakes. And of course, I think it also maintained this title until the remake games came out, because I think Capcom report RE4 sales altogether. So both the original RE4 and the remake one, they kind of report together, which is really odd, honestly. But anyway, but people didn't like Resident Evil 5. Well, there was 2 camps. You either didn't like it or you did like it. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of RE5. I think it does things that I just don't like, and it kind of goes against what makes a good RE game. And RE fans, in my eyes, didn't really like RE5. The more Call of Duty action sort of game it was, even that crowd didn't really sort of resonate a lot with it. It's the classic saying of a hunter chasing two rabbits. It lost both them rabbits completely, but it still sold really fucking well. I'm not going to sit here and slander RE5, it's okay. I don't personally enjoy it that much because I prefer my horror games to have more horror in them than action, and I honestly would love to see RE5 get remade and actually, I think, properly remade, as in completely from the ground up, everything new, because I actually think you could make an interesting game from RE5's setting and story. But EA took a note of this specifically, and probably gave a copy of RE5 to the heads at Visceral Games and basically just said, make us this. This is what we want. Visceral then looked at it, asked, wait, no, this will fail if we make this. And EA responded, nah, it's done well once, it will do well again. So Visceral were basically forced, probably, into making Dead Space 3 a co-op action shooter first and a horror game second. This happens all the fucking time in gaming. It is insane the amount of examples you can point to, with developers being forced into making a completely different game from the franchise and it fails. This happened a lot at the end of the 360 generation as well, which is something you'll notice, mainly because the big sort of publishers that everyone hates were forcing their developers to do this. So Visceral Games were forced into making Dead Space 3, not the follow-up to the masterclass psychological horror game that 2 was, but a poor imitation of what Resident Evil 5 was. And what happens when you imitate a game that most people were mixed on? Well, you make a bad game, that's what you make. But was this a smart move? Well, EA wanted to expand this series' scope and reach a wider audience and capitalize on the success of other action-orientated co-op games, which were hot as fire at the time. But EA wanting the game to be for as wide of an audience as possible led to a lot of changes needing to be made in Dead Space that are core to the series, which I'll try to demonstrate as we go along through the game itself. Unfortunately, horror games do not appeal to a very wide audience. They appeal to weird people like me who like seeing people suffer. I don't know why, but for some reason EA thought it was a good idea to try translate that audience for this game. This game itself wasn't made out of passion by the devs at Visceral in wanting to create the scariest game possible like they did with Dead Space 1, or a game that expanded the world's story and Isaac Clarke's character with Dead Space 2. It was a game that was cooked up by a board of investors as the best game possible that had the highest chance of making as much money as possible made from spreadsheets. But like art, without a creative hand behind it, it just looks messy and the message is lost in a collage of colours. So I guess we should suit up again and see as many explosions as there are in a Michael Bay film and dive into Dead Space 3, dismembering the franchise from within.
It all started 300 years ago.
So immediately, just like Dead Space 2, we have an opening splurge sort of recap of the last 2 games, because hey, this is the 3rd game. And man, this one is fucking ass. Dead Space 2 did it subtly, and this is one word I think caused some confusion last time because I think I use it wrong, but I don't really know what other word to use. Subtle doesn't mean something isn't in your face screaming it. Subtlety in a game, to me, means it's integrated into the world so that it doesn't pull you out of the world. So having someone on comms tell you something like to cut the necromorph limbs off to kill them, while yes is direct and not subtle at all, it doesn't pull you out of the world, it's subtly kind of in the game. I know it doesn't make sense, but unfortunately I'm too stupid to figure out what word to use, and that's the word I use. Case in point, Dead Space 2's intro was a therapy session with Isaac and the doctor guy. A natural way and subtle way to recount the events of the first game. It's not obvious that it's doing this, it still allows you to be immersed in the world itself. It doesn't pull you out, it immerses you in further. It uses that information within the world again, which is a great way to do it, but Dead Space 3 is the perfect example of not how to do it. This is the equivalent of having like a 10-minute sequence at the start of a film that just recaps the entire previous film. It's unnecessary, genuinely, but I understand that they wanted as many people to feel comfortable jumping into this game, which, fuck me, do people really do this? Do they really buy the 3rd game in a trilogy and just only play that one? But yeah, it's not subtle, it pulls you out and makes you realize, oh shit, I'm not in this world, it's a game, and it immediately fails in what I praised Dead Space 2 so much on. It's immersive storytelling in the way it just dragged you into that world. Honestly, it's just ass. And anyway, title reveal, but it's red now, so that's cool. Now we sweep into June 18th, 2314 with a soldier who is lost within a snowstorm with some information of something bad going on and we need to get back.
Alpha Niner, this is Whiskey 250.
Jim! Oh, thank God! Did you find it?
Find it. Doc, I'm not even sure what we're looking for.
Just follow the waypoint I sent you. I can't tell you anymore. Just get there. Dude, do you hear me? You have to get there.
What?
Oh, it's lost.
What? Dang it.
So using our navigator, we slowly make our way through the storm, eventually coming to...
Oh no.
Oh no, I don't know. Civilization. Yeah, I know the concept of other people is fucking terrifying, but we find ourselves on Tau Volantis. And here we find a ship with some ammo outside. So getting ammo, of course, means we get into combat. And let's talk combat. Fuck me, this game feels like ass. I don't know if the game was bugged or something. I tried locking frame rates, I tried changing all kinds of settings, but everything in the game just felt so much worse than Dead Space 2, and I think it's a hit rich thing. But first of all, some basic stuff. Visual feedback is fucking terrible in this game. Enemies don't feel like they react to being shot at all. You can take a sniper, like the Seeker rifle in this game, the sniper rifle, put a round in an enemy's chest, and it doesn't feel like they react to it. Enemies only seem to react when they die, which makes the game feel very unresponsive at times. Blood effects as well, they look terrible, and the game's system for rendering all of its textures and everything, it just looks worse. The game came out 2 years after Dead Space 2 and it looks way worse. This game clearly rushed in development. The average dev cycle on the 360 was about 3 to 4 years, so the fact this came out 2 years after Dead Space 2 tells me this was very clearly rushed in development and was fired out the door as soon as it was playable. Not only does the game feel unresponsive and just a bit awkward at times, it feels very janky. Enemies are way too fucking aggressive in this game. Now trust me, I'm a gamer, I can play games, and I did play Dead Space 3 and I did beat it, but these fuckers are way too much. They move around too much and shooting the limbs feels way too inconsistent in this game. So what I praise in Dead Space in general with its creative way of encouraging a different combat style with shooting the limbs off and then using them limbs to kill them, Dead Space 3, it almost feels like you're discouraged from doing this because a lot of the time the enemies are flailing their limbs all over the place. You can't fucking hit them because by the time you've pulled the trigger, their arms already moved and you've missed it. So a lot of the time, I was just aiming center mass and blasting them. Now, I hope I did show in Dead Space 2 as well that I could actually hit the limbs rather consistently, and I even got some pretty cool lines up, which I don't think I showed, where I killed 3 or 4 enemies with one plasma shot. But man, everything in this game just felt off. The plasma cutter specifically just felt wrong. And I think it says a lot that at the start of this game, you're also given a completely different weapon as well alongside the plasma cutter. I think the devs realized that the plasma cutter was so fucking awkward to use, they gave you a full-auto SMG to counteract that, so you could just shoot enemies center mass Call of Duty style. I don't know. I don't know if the devs knew this or my game was bugged or something was wrong, but this game just did not feel up to snuff that Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2 are to me. It's been a while since I played Dead Space 3, but I don't remember it being this bad, or maybe it's because I didn't play it a lot that I don't remember this, because Dead Space 3 was the one game I actually dropped back in the day when I played these games. I don't know how to explain it, but just it felt wrong, and Dead Space 2 felt so much better. If you want to test it, buy both the games when on sale, play Dead Space 2 and then play Dead Space 3, and then come back to me, because I swear to God there is something weird about these games. But anyway, talking about combat, there's also something else about this game. Co-op. Dead Space 3 is a co-op game, and the game is designed around that fact, akin to something like RE5. And what I notice is that this game itself feels so much more open and less claustrophobic compared to Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2, and the more aggressive enemies may have been implemented due to the assumed 2 players. With there being the potential of 2 players, that means the potential of double the firepower in an engagement, but in solo, you've only got 1 gun, so it just feels odd and the enemies feel too aggressive. But I assume in co-op, I didn't play co-op because A, I don't have friends, and B, I was too scared to ask anyone. It probably felt fine and honestly probably gave the game a bit of a challenge. But yeah, Dead Space 3 was very clearly designed as a co-op game first, and late game shit gets hard, especially solo, and also, yes,
Doc, we found a way in.
Good.
The bodies also freak out in this game because I had VSync turned off. If you turn it on, it fixes it, but I just find it funny. But yeah, great start to this game immediately. The game just fell off to me. I can't explain why because I'm not smart enough to dive into the game's engine and everything, but I always get scared when a game mechanically, a sequel specifically, feels a lot worse to play than its predecessor. Also, the game crashed here for me, which is also a fucking amazing first impression. Already feeling awkward with the game's mechanics, controls, how it feels, and then the game fucking crashes. I just love that. That's not related, that was my fault because I was pissing about with the settings and crashed it. But yeah, great first impression. But making our way into the ship and fighting more guys and doing a cheeky old snake eater, we reach our objective, a futuristic Pringles can. And guess what? With our friend here surviving in the fall, we see not everyone was so lucky, and we run into our commander. And guess what? We can stop the marker with the funny Pringles can. Something, there's a 44 Magnum in our skull now, and this so-called key to stopping the marker is then deleted by our commander, and then he kills himself. How nice. What a great start to Dead Space 3. But now we cut to the New Horizons colony 200 years later, and we meet back up with Isaac with him,
Are you there? Come on, pick up the phone. Fine. Look, I just called to say I'm moving on. I have to. Just take care of yourself, okay?
Guess he lost the baddie from the last game again. But he's not alone.
You Isaac Clarke? Get the fuck off. Answer me!
Tim?
Who the hell are you?
Lift him up. Up! I don't have a lot of time, so I want to make this brief. I understand you're something of an expert on markers. You created one.
I didn't make shit. Your government made me.
And you destroyed two, which is why we're here. We got a job for you.
No. No! I'm done with that. You find somebody else for your suicide mission.
We did. Before we lost contact with her. She told us to find you.
Ellie. Where is she? What'd you do to her? Where is she?
So first of all, real quick, this is Carver and Robert. Carver is the second player character who actually has a pretty cool story, and Robert is... we'll get into him in a minute. But honestly, this might be the worst fucking way to drag Isaac back into the story, and I genuinely mean that. This simple start sets up a poor foundation for the entire game's fucking story. Dead Space 2, you had the 3-year coma and being in a psych ward. It sets up the game perfectly as a more mental experience, and is also about the unconfronted trauma that Isaac has from the events on the Ishimura 3 years back. He stayed in place. The coma represents that. It's a cool use for that thing. But Dead Space 3, yeah, know the girl from the last game? That one some people think is cringe? I don't know, I kind of liked her. I thought she was well written. Honestly, I think some people need to be more open to good female characters and female characters in general. Trust me, there are some female characters that are just as good as male ones. She was Isaac's girlfriend, but now they're separated. Get it from the torn picture? Get it? It's like a physical metaphor that they're split apart, that their relationship was torn apart or torn down. Wow. But Robert here states Ellie was on some sort of mission and is now trapped, and only we, Isaac Clarke, can save her. Also Carver, he's going to come with us as well for some reason. But do you know the fun thing about Carver here? If you play solo, just forget about his entire story, because it is not talked about and he feels completely out of place in the game, like he shouldn't fucking exist. Carver has honestly some of the best scenes in this game, but if you play solo, you don't get any of them. I'll comment on this later, so let's move on. But anyway, with Isaac agreeing to the mission because, you know, he wants to save the girl, we obtain 2 weapons, the plasma cutter and the SMG, or the military engine. They're ass. But we can also explore Isaac's apartment, finding a message from his landlord saying he will be evicted because he's behind on rent. What a great guy. But we need to hurry and regroup with EarthGov soldiers, and with them stating that they are
EarthGov's last battalion. Name's Norton. Captain Robert Norton. Sergeant John Carver.
Last battalion, what do you mean?
Last means last, genius, as in no more left. Looks clear.
the last battalion against who? Well, these fun guys who are terrorists, and the terrorists do a bit of domestic terrorism. This is fucking so stupid, but we enter our first combat section with Isaac, and we are killing human enemies. This is a terrible fucking start for a survival horror game, because guess what? It is not a survival horror game. If there's one thing a survival horror game, to me, should never do, is have you killing regular human combatants that are of sane mind. I know some people might point to a game like Fear. Yes, I know that's not a survival horror game, and I said survival horror games. I meant to just say horror games, but my dumbass said survival horror games. I know Fear's not a survival horror game, but Fear is a bit different because that's the whole point of the game. But something like this, which is like necromorphs, zombies, it being like Resident Evil, where if you went to Raccoon City PD, you go into the building, you shoot a couple zombies, then all of a sudden the fucking National Guard just turn up and you start killing them. It doesn't add anything, and it often makes the game less scary. And why are these the first fucking guys we're killing? They're just random goons, they're not scary. And you know the part I hate is, I actually like this area. I like the cityscape and everything. It's a really nice area, and I think it would have been really cool to see necromorphs running around here. We do in a bit, but you mainly kill Unitologists for a bit. But yes, these are the Unitologists, and we get to see how far their spread and influence has sort of engulfed the society that Dead Space takes place in. It displays that Unitology has clearly become a major power since Dead Space 2 and everything that happened on the Titan station. Isaac, now blocked by a highway or road that is a bit busy, commits his own bit of domestic terrorism. Honestly, I don't know what the fuck's going on anymore and what is happening, but this seems very unnecessary. Finding ourselves in the Dregard lobby, we see a recording from the main antagonist of this game, Jacob Arthur Danik, a high-ranking member of the Church of Unitology and the leader of the military Unitology organization that we ourselves are killing at this very moment. They are known as the Circle, and with us going up an elevator, we group with EarthGov again.
This one's still alive. Bring him here.
Isaac Clarke. Just the man I was looking for. Oh, don't waste your energy. You're going to be dead in a matter of minutes. Pick him up. There's something I'd like you to see. There. You see that? It's a marker test lab. They're everywhere at all the major colonies and outposts.
What do you want from me?
As part of the marker test program, Isaac, you helped make them. And today, you of all people get to watch me set them free.
No, no. You'll kill everyone.
Death is only the beginning, Isaac. Nature must take its course, and I can't allow you or anyone else to stop that. Eyes forward, Isaac. Pay attention. And now it's time for you to join the cycle of rebirth.
So with us falling again another large distance and getting knocked out, it's clear EarthGov, even after what has happened in Dead Space 2, still want to pursue the usage of markers as some sort of clean energy source. But the increase in the power of the Church of Unitology has now led to them basically turning their markers on, causing convergence, and case in point, here come the necromorphs. Honestly, I actually quite like the necromorph designs in this game. They're all pretty good, I will say that much, and the new ones are all pretty fun. And also, I actually like this part of Dead Space 3's story with the Unitologists, how they've come into power because of everything that's been happening and how they sort of manipulated the situation into probably tricking people into joining their cause and believing the marker will save them, even though the marker is the thing that's directly killing them. But yeah, I like it. And Danik himself, in my opinion, is a really cool, underutilized villain. And honestly, I think it's mainly due to his voice performance by Simon Templeman, who's been in quite a few games with varying quality. But I honestly think Dead Space 3 could have used him way more and honestly needed him way more. Dead Space 3 needed a good villain, in my opinion, if they wanted to keep Isaac in the story. So I think he would have been the perfect guy. For fuck's sake, he's voiced Victor Von Doom before, a character that needs a
perfectly ordered world, all under the benevolence of my iron will.
Also, he's British, so he gets points in my book. But honestly, just like Dead Space 2, every performance is really fucking good, except a few key moments and a couple lines that kind of just made me laugh. The script may be lacking, but the actors and VAs, they don't phone it in, they all give a great performance and they're all amazing, honestly. But shooting our way through some more necros, we reach an elevator, with Norton and Isaac coming up with a quick plan of escape. So we make our way to the Washington station, which was the place they decided, and honestly, as I stated, I really like this opening area. It sort of sets the normalcy of what society looks like in the Dead Space universe. Something we haven't really seen yet, as all we've seen really are ruined landscapes and a completely insane place in Dead Space 2. It just engulfs you in the world, and I know that's like a game design snob thing for me to say, but it just sort of brings you in and makes you sort of be able to see what life in this world is actually like, apart from dying from necromorphs. Making our way to the train though, we board it and we start to make our escape, and of course a big action set piece occurs here, which, damn, this is like the fourth one in 40 minutes, with Norton fighting off the Unitologist ships in his own ship, and we fight our way up the train to then jump onto the ship, and eventually Carver drags us on with us escaping the talons of the Unitologists and escape into space. What the fuck was this opening? This was like the opening hour of the game, and I hope you can see just how fucking insane this was. Dead Space 2, nothing this crazy happened to about the 3-hour mark. We're in the first hour and we've had like 4 big set pieces already. Anyway, with Isaac waking up on the ship and trying to be friendly with Carver.
Cute kid, you leave him behind?
He's dead. Danik killed him and his mother.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Don't be. We're not friends.
Obviously, Carver is meant to be an arse here, but slowly that tough guy exterior will be broken down into the nicer character that you get at the end, who actually has a really great arc. But guess what? You're playing solo, you won't see any of that development, it will just happen. But this audio log, I think, kind of explains what his entire arc is going to be, with him being an absentee father and away from his entire family, so he feels like a failure in that sort of sense, and it's about that idea of self-worth. Again, something that Dead Space seems to keep coming back into, the idea of self-worth. Norton goes on about Ellie finding something that could stop the markers completely, but they lost contact with her and we have been brought in to now save her, as apparently only we could help her. Now arriving in the orbit of Tau Volantis, the planet from the opening with the soldier that got fucking domed. But guess what?
Frozen! I see it! Out of here!
Collision warning. Brace for impact.
Some mines that start exploding, and yes, another fucking action set piece. We now have to make a plan to escape the ship unscathed. And man, this ship is just way too much. It blows up too much and shit goes crazy too much. Isaac is an engineer, by the way. He's not an action hero. I know he's been in some pretty bad situations, but this is silly at this point. Isaac eventually gets an Eva suit, is now flung into space, and he now has to detach a block from the ship which has the crew in it, and we can fly them through space. What the fuck is going on?
Okay.
Isaac has, honestly, I don't think I need to explain why this is silly, but I'm going to explain why I have an issue with the amount of fucking stupid action set pieces this game has, because I feel like some people might not understand it. I don't mind having these sort of more bombastic scenes in these horror games, but they need to be way less frequent. Isaac has been able to take a tumble and a fall. I mean, Dead Space 1 did have a couple of these moments, and Dead Space 2 had a few more, but this game, man, it really wanted to be RE5 in its boulder punching ass. The action set pieces are numerous and absolutely fucking silly. Isaac should have died about 4 times already, and while yes, there were times he should have died in both Dead Space 1 and 2, those situations were so infrequent, felt like genuine luck on the side of Isaac, that he had just gotten lucky and almost added to that horror that you aren't in control. But in Dead Space 3, it almost feels like fucking Isaac is some sort of superhero guy or some sort of... and he just feels fucking invincible, so it makes the game less scary in that sense. We make our way onto the ship with the signal on it, and we start to make our way to the cargo hold to open the doors to allow everyone else out of the cube so they can actually breathe. Honestly, some people don't like this opening area of Dead Space 3. I am not one of those people. I actually like this area. It's a lot more atmospheric and claustrophobic and more dingy. Definitely reminds me the most of the Ishimura. With everyone else on board, Norton gives us the coordinates of the signal that we obtained, and we head there to see if we can find Ellie. And at this point, you will get access to the workbench, Dead Space 3's new killer mechanic. And do you want my honest opinion on the workbench in Dead Space 3? I don't fucking like it. I hate this thing. So, you might have noticed something different about Dead Space 3. You can only hold 2 weapons as opposed to the 4 you could hold in Dead Space 1 and 2. But you can create a weapon that has 2 weapons on it. You can mix and match parts to create all kinds of different weapons. Now, a slight problem with this system is once you allow people to create different kinds of guns, how do you sort of make the ammo system as streamlined as it was back then? There is like 6 or 7 different guns per engine part, or the per back part of the gun, which are thingied by the front part of the different weapons. So how do you sort of distribute ammo between them? How does that work? It gets very complicated. How do you determine the drops of that ammo? It becomes this fucking game design nightmare of how do you balance them? Well, throw out every fucking survival horror 101 book you've ever seen about having different types of ammo that you have to balance and manage and use with different guns. This game utilizes a universal ammo system, which at first sounds fine, but that means actually having to pick and choose between weapons due to what ammo you have, or changing weapons because you ran out of ammo in one, never happens in this game. All guns use the same ammo. The best survival horror games, in my eyes, using only one gun for the entire game should be extremely difficult to do, as you shouldn't be able to get enough ammo to do that. You should have to keep jumping between guns to ensure you have the ability to shoot things at all times. Of course, I know in Dead Space 1 and 2, the drop of what ammo you get is depending on what gun you have on you, so you can just take one gun and you get a shit ton of ammo for it, but I still think that's kind of a boring system in my eyes, but it does lead to some cool challenge runs in general. But a lot of survival horror games also have guns within a hierarchy, so often you get the worst gun at the very beginning and you get very powerful guns later game. I know Dead Space, like the plasma cutter is the gun, it's like the best gun, but I'm thinking more games like Resident Evil or Signalis, where the guns later in the game are significantly more powerful and will allow you to kill enemies much easier later on. But with Dead Space allowing you to craft weapons, the order you obtain weapons in is completely gone. Even Dead Space 1 and 2, you could only buy certain guns at certain points. Dead Space 3 though, you got enough resources, you can fucking build the best gun in the game by chapter 4. That is way too early, honestly. Also the universal ammo means that picking and choosing between weapons is never a thing about do I have enough ammo or do I have the resources to use this. It's always which one do I like, which yeah, it's fine, but survival horror games, you should have to master the usage of almost all weapons in the game to succeed. Also, if you run out of ammo in one gun, you can't swap to another and like juggle the 2 or 5 or 6 guns you have. Like, in something like Resident Evil, or the 4 you had in Dead Space 1 and 2, you run out of ammo. It's universal ammo, meaning ammo is shared, so if you run out of ammo in one gun, you're out in the other. Also, it's a clip-based system, so if you reload before both guns are empty, you lose the ammo in that clip. It's a fucking horrible system. I despise it. I don't like it. At first, the bench is a cool idea. The ability to make your own guns and sort of change them to how you want them. And it seems that it encourages more experimentation, which is wrong. Case in point, the problem with the bench, the material system. Dead Space 3 has like, 5-6 different materials that you have to juggle in order to buy, upgrade, everything. Your rig, your guns, buy new upgrade node things, not nodes, they're like CPU looking ass things, and new attachments. So basically they replaced the old node system, which I think is a great upgrade system because I actually think it's one of the better ones in survival horror, with this shitty ass mobile game ass looking material counters, which you'll quickly realize a lot of the things that you can buy with these materials are really fucking expensive, especially early on. And yes, you can find a lot of parts for guns in the world, but you're not always going to find them. Most people aren't going to fully explore the game like I do because I'm some freak for video games. Most people will play this game very linearly and they will miss a lot of the stuff, so they will find themselves having to buy the parts with materials. But also, choosing to build a new weapon in this game means it will be weaker if you don't have all the upgrade nodes that you want for it, or you don't make a good weapon. Certain weapons in this game are just ass. They don't hit hard enough or they don't do enough damage, and also some of them are awkward as fuck to use at first because you have to learn how to use a gun. I remember trying to make the contact beam work in this game. I just couldn't. I didn't like it. It wasn't the same thing that was from Dead Space 2, which I really liked using. It just felt terrible. In a way, the bench itself discourages you from experimenting, especially early on with weapons. In my playthrough, I made about 6 different weapons, but I stuck with 2 that I made at one point because they were just the best at dealing the most damage as fast as possible. This game's more aggressive enemies means you can't really use the slower weapons. You need things that shoot fast or hit fucking hard in one bullet. And I can't rank these weapons either. Because there is so many different combinations and upgrade paths, I'm sure there's a way to make all these weapons really good. I just couldn't be bothered to find them because at one point I just upgraded 2 weapons to the max and I really enjoyed using them. But genuinely there is so many different ways you can build these weapons up. But I will give you my favourite. My favourite gun is taking the Seeker rifle from Dead Space 2 and then slapping an RPG on the bottom of it. This thing basically carried me the entire playthrough and I adored it. But why have so many different materials in this game, and why have them be so expensive as well? Why do we need 6 different materials, which these upgrades were done fine by just one material, the node system? Why change it to these materials that have these weird numbers given to you and odd amounts? Yes, these guys. You could buy fucking materials at one point with real fucking money. I hate this fucking company so much. Dead Space 3 has a disgusting amount of microtransactions. It's clear Visceral were basically forced to try squeeze as much money out of this game as possible. And they made one of the worst things I've ever seen for a survival horror game. Not just for the greed of it, not just because of how poorly implemented it is, but also because it fucking destroys a survival horror game. Now, I don't mind resource gathering. I've played a few survival games in my time, and I honestly think this is a fine change on its own. And I think it would have been okay in addition to the node system that was there beforehand, allowing us to buy new attachments or upgrades for the rig itself being with this new material system. I think they should have found a way to integrate it into the old node system, as in a way juggling all these materials in itself is a survival horror game. You have to manage all these different resources to ensure your success in the game. But being able to buy the fucking resources takes that idea of managing stuff away completely. Imagine in Resident Evil from the trader, if you just put your credit card in and you bought a shit ton of bullets from him, or you bought the best gun in the game. You might say, well, Croc, it's only for upgrades of equipment, right? No, you can buy things like ammo and med packs in this game with the materials that you can buy. And it's crazy to me. Honestly, I genuinely do not understand how they thought this was a good idea. So by logic, you could at the start of the game, put your credit card in and fully upgrade Isaac's rig completely, buy the best weapons in the game and buy a shit ton of ammo and healing items and just cruised the game completely easily, never finding any challenge in the game. What is the point of the difficulties then? It's clear this system was only made, the bench itself, so this sort of monetization system could be plugged in. And guess what? It's being gutted in some areas because of law changes as well. I mean, I couldn't buy any resources here in the UK, but apparently it's because they're blocked, and apparently in the US you still can. So a lot of these sort of aggressive microtransactions seem to have been pulled out in some areas but left in others, and then you have a resource that is used to buy the packets of materials in the shop with fake currency that you don't pay for is still left in the game. It is fucking weird, honestly. Conclusion from that rant, the bench is a half-baked idea created and built around a monetization idea that was greedy and aggressive. With some more necros coming live and I love these games so much, and flying through a 0G section with these little fuckers and finding the reactor and fixing it up while getting into, guess what, more combat. There is a lot of fighting in this game, but fixing the reactor, we now rendezvous with the boys and finally reunite with Ellie.
Oh God, you found us.
Oh, Ellie, baby.
Brother, what's that?
Oh boy, here we go. So Ellie and Isaac broke up, and in that time, she and Robert Norton here got together. And man, this fucking love triangle and this will they, won't they thing that they have in this game is horrible. Now trust me, I'm not opposed to a good bit of love drama in a story. Trust me, I like some good animes. But this shit is so ass. Robert, after this point, his character just degrades into the jealous boyfriend character, and it's terrible, which I will try to show throughout this video. And Ellie and him, they never really act like a couple. If anything, to me, it's portrayed like a fucking secondary school relationship. A lot of awkward lines of dialogue and a whole lot of male chest puffing at other blokes. They don't seem like an actual couple to me. But also we meet Jennifer Santos and Austin Bucko, two characters who are completely fucking sidelined in the game, but actually some of them have some good lines, Bucko specifically anyway. Now Ellie quickly explains our mission.
Isaac, we need to stop the marker. The trail ends at the Admiral's quarters. She'd written marker scroll all over the walls. The answers are in there, I know it. We cannot leave until we know what it says.
Yeah, well then let Isaac handle the translating. We're leaving now. I got Bucko, you get Santos, let's go.
Oh.
Go on, take care of your crew. They need you more than I do.
Oh, anyway, moving forward, Isaac and Ellie have a bit of a domestic again, and Ellie shames him for...
Oh no, you get up on the world.
I paid my dues. Or don't you think I'm fucked up enough already?
I don't think that's what you're meant to do with someone that has a clear mental issue and a clear case of PTSD. It's not a good message, is it? Anyway, big tentacles and we go... But we now head and regroup with Carver in the Admiral quarters.
Oh my god.
Ellie, Carver, to reach the Admiral's quarters. Isaac's.
Turn it off.
Hey, Isaac.
Turn it
Isaac?
off.
Carver, what's going on?
Turn it off.
Isaac.
Turn
Hey.
it off. Turn it off.
Hey!
What is it? What's going on?
Nothing. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Ellie, the Admiral was obsessed with making a key.
A key to what?
Hey, a key to what?
Some sort of alien device. A machine. I think that she believed that it controlled the markers.
Oh my god.
She wanted to turn it off. She wrote that over and over again like a mantra.
Or instructions. This is exactly what we've been looking for. This isn't just some random planet, Isaac. They found the source. The marker homeworld.
You have got to be shitting me.
So Isaac makes a key discovery that the Admiral was wanting to make a key to a device which controls all the markers. A kind of global signal to start convergence everywhere, and this somehow leads them to believing that Tau Volantis is the marker homeworld. Honestly, while a decent jump in logic, there is nothing concrete here that states this is the marker homeworld, so I don't know why they jumped to this conclusion. Because it was completely possible that this thing was made by another species that came from somewhere else that planted the markers there and the big key thing that controls all of them. It's odd. honestly, but fuck it, let's go down there. So we need to find a ship, which Buckle has very kindly found for us to travel to the surface of the planet, but Robert, being a little scaredy little cat, doesn't want to go down to Volantis because he wants to save Ellie and be a nice white knight in shining armor. Ellie obviously states that there won't be anywhere to go back to if they don't stop the markers completely and stop the Unitologists from doing whatever they're doing on the planet, yada yada yada. Anyway, let's start making our way to the next objective, with Ellie and co now finding a ship in which we are going to grab, and again, Robert and Ellie have another fucking domestic. It gets kind of annoying. They argue about what is going to happen, either head home or go to the planet. They just had this fucking argument. I wonder if any sort of issue is going to arise from them continually having this fucking argument. But anyway, Isaac, being a good man and just staying out of it, continues on his and surely Robert won't do anything drastic in order to try save Ellie's life in the future. Insert the scene later in the game with him threatening us with a gun. Nah, surely not. Anyway, making our way to that very ship, here's Robert being weird again.
Isaac, Norton here.
Why are you contacting me on a private channel?
Because I need to know if you're on my side.
We're taking sides now?
I know you two had a thing, but she's mine now, and I love her too much to let her do this.
If she's right and this is the marker homeworld, maybe there's a chance of stopping this.
Look, we both know how this is going to end. If they found a way to stop the markers 200 years ago, don't you think we'd all be safe by now? It doesn't add up. Oh, I get it. I get it. You think you and her... Yeah, we'll forget it. She's over it, all right?
Completely sane fucking individual here. Completely sane. But now out here in space, with these open space sequences are actually kind of cool. But honestly, they're not that good for a survival horror game because they just feel out of place in what Dead Space once was. I know the game has 0G sequences, but like the open space stuff just feels too open. Be great in a completely different game, honestly, but just feels a bit unnecessary here. But we also get our very first side mission, and Dead Space 3 has quite a few side missions which allow us to explore optional areas and obtain a bunch of materials and upgrade parts. Honestly, they all have some great environments and are good fun. So they are quite fun as well, with some good difficulty. And guess what? There's no annoying story here with Robert and Ellie and Isaac bickering about who gets the girl in the end, so that doesn't taint them. And honestly, they were some of my most enjoyed parts of Dead Space 3 because it's when I started to get fully immersed in the game itself. But unfortunately, there is nothing to actually say about these side missions, so I just finished it real quick and we started to head back towards our main objective on the Terra Nova to look for a shuttle. So on the Terra Nova, we look for docking records to try find if a ship is even still there, with Isaac very quickly finding that yes, there is a ship there, and Isaac states that the ship is a
real piece of shit.
Isaac, though being the top grade engineer he is, he can very clearly fix it, so our new objective is to find the parts in order to fix it, and also a navigational module, so we can actually land on Tau Volantis. But along our way we find a little friend, a gathering robot, which we can deploy to gather resources for us that we can then use in the bench. Honestly, a cute little guy, but not that important. Killing some more Necros and a bunch of running around later, and I mean a lot of killing of Necros. They seem to never fucking end and the shooting never seems to stop. For context, I played on hard by the way, but these fuckers just never seem to stop spawning at all times. We reach the tram station and trying to get the tram to run, it's blocked. So we have to find a way to unblock it. So we do just that with this fun little puzzle, which is used only once and never again. Honestly, a bit odd, but removing all the junk and a regenerator, we get to a thing that I fucking despise in this game. Isaac explaining the whole necro arm thing, with him playing the recording from fucking Dead Space 2, and I hated this.
That is the laziest way to do that.
Now in the Dead Space 2 video, I made the comment on the game subtly teaches you how this mechanic works. And I think that statement, as I've said, confused a couple people. Something can be directly stated to us, but still subtly taught to us. It can use a method to subtly tell us this, not in a subtle way, but not make us realize we're being taught something. The recording in Dead Space 2 was tied into the environmental storytelling. You got immersed in that story and you wanted to figure out what happened to the guy who killed this Necro, and it teaches you then how to use the Necro's arms. But here Isaac just says, guys, use their arms. Here's a recording to explain it, and then plays it for himself. He kept the recording from the dead guy in Dead Space 2 for God knows how many years. Why does he have it? Honestly, why does he have it? This is what I mean by it not being subtle. It's very clearly teaching us something. And yes, I know Dead Space 1 and 2 at times you do have characters directly saying it to you, but they do it in a more sort of roundabout way that is more in universe. This, Isaac is very clearly stating, hey guys, this is how you use the arms to kill Necros, and then an explanation is given to you. It's like, oh yeah, this is a tutorial. It's very clearly a tutorial. And that's something Dead Space 3 seems to rely on a lot more, is like very obvious tutorials. I mean, look at the fucking workbench and the whole fucking explanation it has to give to you in order for you to understand it. Again, I'm probably using the word subtle wrong, but I hope my point gets across that sort of immersing the tutorials in the world and not dragging us out is often better than what this game is currently doing. But yeah, Dead Space 3 completely fails at that. Anyway, here's the regenerator again. So we run away like hell, eventually the tram station, and have to wait for it to come and basically run around so the regenerator doesn't kill us. But guess what? There's now 2 of them. This game really isn't pulling any punches with its more action focus. But yeah, I hope it's very clear already that this game is more Resident Evil 5 than Resident Evil 4 that Dead Space was. Dead Space 1 and 2 were very much Resident Evil 4. This is very much Resident Evil 5. There's almost no atmosphere, it's just action for the sake of action. Anyway, we now get on the tram and then the group have a wee bit of a chinwag. Also another side mission. Again, doesn't really matter for the overall story, but it was fun. I like the guy setting up the explosive and being a general nuisance even after his death. Let's get on to the aft section in this stage, in which we get to our main objective, the shuttle. And guess what? Regenerator. Now Isaac says that we need to create something, so we run around the hangar finding all the parts to build it and attach it to the ship. Of course, while doing this, a bunch of enemies spawn and make our life as difficult as possible, and you've probably noticed the loop of Dead Space 3 already. You enter a room, you try to do an objective, but get assaulted by a bunch of enemies while trying to do said objective. Sounds like trying to do your weekly shop in fucking Westminster, if you ask me. Nothing but pickpockets and fucking angry drunks or druggies. Anywho, with our creation in hand, we attach it to the ship, and now we need to fuel the damn ship up. It would be so helpful if there was 5 other people that could actually do something to help repair this ship, but no, Isaac has to do absolutely fucking everything here. So we quickly basically refuel the shuttle, and of course shit gets a bit hot, so we make a run back to the shuttle to escape the hellfire, and then we have to unblock some turbines by shooting explosive barrels at this turret, and eventually... With us escaping by using explosions, we now fly our way back towards the shuttle, and guess what? The ship needs some more upgrades so that we can actually enter the atmosphere. So we need to get a new engine. Honestly, kind of boring. It is just one massive fetch quest, so I'm just going to completely skip over it because nothing happens. And we take it back, and also a flight path recording that we can use in the navigation module. Honestly, this is just one massive fetch quest. This is not a fun thing to talk about, so I'm just going to skip it. But guess what? Robert and Ellie have another argument again, and Carver now sides with us, which honestly just feels like fucking out of nowhere in single player. But if you play co-op, it makes a lot more sense because throughout this entire time, Isaac and Carver would be talking to each other. But yeah, Robert is not enjoying losing his authority within the group. But actually making our way back to the shuttle and inserting the nav module, we now enter the ship, and guess what? These fuckers still haven't done anything to fucking fix the ship up. So we have to do even more. Honestly, without Isaac, these fuckers would be dead in 5 minutes. So quickly fixing it, we can now start to make our descent to Tau Volantis with this really awkward on-rail shooter sequence, and guess what? It doesn't go according to plan, with all hell breaking loose, and insert the many deaths on the ship. The ship then catches on fire somehow and something, so we fix it, and this guy gets fucking annihilated.
Jesus.
Anyway, average driving experience in a fucking war zone, I guess. We start to crash land onto the planet, and the entire fucking ship gets torn in 2. What kind of Houdini shit is this? Anyway. Isaac then wakes up and realizes, fuck, it's really cold, and we now have to make our way through the snowstorm and try regroup with Ellie and co. This entire section has a whole body temperature thing, which is just the oxygen meter just reskinned, so it's the same shit. But also there's this funny looking ship. After that, eventually, we find the other half of the ship. How very nice of him to completely disregard this random guy that was trying to help him because it's not the woman he wants to shag. Anyway, Ellie also left us the recording, so we follow the flares that she instructed for us to follow.
Do they also get hit by that thing?
I don't know how the fuck he survived that, don't even ask me. Following more flares though that somehow are also here, we reach a small safe room. But exiting it and running around the snowstorm even more, eventually you'll reach a checkpoint which requires you to have a snowsuit. So we have to find a snowsuit. Running around a little bit more, you'll find another room and you'll find Buckle on the floor looking like he's freezing to death.
Buckle. Isaac. Well, I'll be damned.
Where is everyone?
They headed for a research facility up the ridge. We found snowsuits, but there weren't enough to go around, so I decided to stay behind. There might be more down in the basement.
Might be.
The elevator shot, and we heard something scratching around down there, so we didn't check. Buckle.
Honestly, I feel bad for Buckle. Abandoned and left to die in the cold alone. He also has a couple of great lines in this game. Anyway, we now fix the elevator up. We now head down there to search for a snowsuit with a recording in the elevator saying there is some sort of monster down there. And lo and behold, these fuckers, basically the children necros from Dead Space 2, but they're a bit bigger, so they're easier to hit. These fuckers are weak but numerous. Honestly, kind of annoying, but they're fun to mow down nonetheless. Running through this area really quick though, we eventually obtain our new suit, the Arctic Survival Suit, the main rig of this game, and honestly, it's the best looking one. All the other suits in this game are straight ass. I don't know what the fuck the designers were smoking with this game, but man, never let this person cook again with suits. Again, new side quest, but it doesn't really matter. Let's move on. We make our way with the snowsuit to the checkpoint and we can now make our through, and guess what? Isaac somehow gets into trouble again with another larger vehicle. I don't know how, but he should just stay away from the larger vehicles. Escaping the danger, we finally regroup with Carver at the facility, but guess what?
Hi there.
There's a big necro here, and we have our first boss fight against, honestly, actually a pretty cool enemy, I like it. The Snow Beast, or as I call it, the Spider. Beating it up and it escaping, we head inside and finally get back with the group.
Isaac, you made it.
Thank God.
I'm sure this one action isn't going to cause a rift in the group at all.
Good to see you made it, Isaac. You know, maybe we should give you two some time alone, huh?
What the hell does that mean?
It means for someone who's in the past, you're awfully glad to see him.
We need him. This mission needs
Come on,
him.
we need him or you need him?
Hey, you got something to say to me, Captain?
Stop. Just stop. We need to shut down that damn machine, and we don't even know where it is yet.
I do. I mean, I think I know how to find it. Well, I've been digging through what's left of the research notes, and...
I thought all that stuff was destroyed.
Well, computer data, yes. But the written logs discuss a signal tracking experiment that pinpointed the machine's exact location. Well, I think if we repeat it, we can do the same. But it's at the other end of the complex.
Yeah, fine. Fine, let's have a look. I could use a change of scenery.
He's a real asshole, you know that?
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about this part. Let's talk about what many people dislike about Dead Space 3 entirely, the forced love triangle drama. Now, as I stated earlier, I'm not opposed to a good love triangle and a bit of a lover's quarrel in stories, but Dead Space 3's one is just poorly written. Isaac and Ellie's relationship is so fucking underdeveloped because it's all off screen. We didn't see any of it, and also we don't know anything about Robert at all. Robert himself is just not a fun character, and you don't really understand his point because because we barely know the relationships between these characters because of how little we've seen of them. And honestly, it only gets worse as time goes on, and I completely understand why people hate this love triangle thing so much. It's just annoying. Having a love drama in a story is a massive risk to take. It can either lead to some really great character development for characters, or what happens in this case, a lot of drama about stupid things that don't matter and just pulls you out of the game and makes you roll your eyes at it. It happens for no reason and it just doesn't add anything. If anything, these characters themselves in these situations degrade the game itself. I'm sure take Ellie out of the game would be fine. Well, it wouldn't, but that's me being a bit mean. Anyway, here's the group almost dying yet again. This shit is so goofy, and yes, now Danik has arrived, and now we get to fight human enemies again, which, yeah, I don't like. But we get to play with the cover-based system that Dead Space 3 also introduces, and honestly, Dead Space 3 might have one of the worst cover-based systems I have ever seen in my life. This shit plays like ass. But why does this game have a bad cover-based system in my opinion? Well, it's all to do with the movement. Dead Space's movement has always been stiff as anything. Isaac moves in a really awkward way, with sideways movement not being as quick as forward and back. You don't have the more fluid movement that you have in a game like Gears of War or The Last of Us. Isaac is very stiff, so trying to dive into cover just doesn't feel natural. I didn't ever use the cover in this game. I just shot enemies before they could kill me, and honestly, I didn't enjoy any part where the game was trying to encourage you to use the cover. But yeah, anyway, a lot of cultists killed later. We get access to our first co-op mission, and I couldn't do it because again, A, I have no friends, and B, I was too scared to ask another person to play the game with me. But these side missions requiring co-op in my eyes are also a bad thing, as I always believe every game that can be enjoyed as single player needs to be able to be completed in 100% in solo, especially games that are from a single player franchise like Dead Space. One day this game might lose its online functionality. We don't know what the future holds, so one day this game might not be able to be played online at all. So then co-op missions would just be lost to the ether. So I just had to skip this mission, but anyway, after this, Robert then starts to blame us for being here.
Ellie, everyone all right?
Yeah, I think we're safe.
We are anything but safe. They're after Isaac and we're getting caught in the crossfire.
Look, the warehouse. The signal tracking experiment should be inside.
You're not worth this much trouble.
God, this guy is an arsehole out of nowhere.
Look at that big necromorph. Kind of spooky, isn't it? But we now reach the coring platform, which has a big drill, and guess what? The drill itself is a boss fight, so we have another combat sequence. Didn't mind it. Kind of boring though, there's not a lot to it. But this entire section is a fucking blur to me because it just felt like I was fighting enemies for hours, just constantly. But breaking the drill, we head into the warehouse and Isaac has a couple of issues.
Is everything okay?
Oh yeah, between this planet trying to kill us, your boyfriend hating me, this has been a wonderful trip so far.
Well, it's not usually like this. I don't know why.
Just let us fight it out, okay? One of us will win eventually.
Now, why is Robert acting like this? Well, I think it might be due to the marker's influence and everyone slowly going insane. Because if you play as Carver with a friend, or if your friend plays as Carver, Carver himself has hallucinations akin to what happened in Dead Space 2 with Isaac, so I honestly think that's what's happening here. The marker does play on humans' inner demons and all their problems. In Dead Space 2, it's Isaac's self-doubt and self-hatred, and in this game, it seems that Robert, it's more jealousy and feelings of not being, I guess, a good enough man for Ellie. Carver, it's to do with his wife and child. He often sees women walking around asking for help. Obviously, it plays on that feeling of not being a good father, good husband, etc, etc. This itself is just a theory. It's never confirmed because the markers shouldn't be activated on this planet because they're not, they're frozen. So potentially it's the Brethren moons that we'll talk about later. It's just a theory though, and it explains the almost fucking bipolar fucking behavior from all the characters in the game. So we explore explore the research facility, finding some notes from a Dr. Serrano about the Nexus experiment. Honestly, this Serrano does a lot of explaining on what the Nexus actually is, but more importantly, we get a new suit. And guess what? This shit looks like ass. I swear to God, I don't know what happened in between Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3, but whoever cooked with these suits, don't even let them fucking in the restaurant where the kitchen cooks. This motherfucker does not know how to make cool looking suits. Almost every suit in this game looks goofy as shit, and I hate almost all of them. But anyway, heading upstairs, we replace a battery node to repair the furnace or something. Again, we seem to be fixing a lot of random shit, but anyway, here goes Robert again, throwing his toys out the pram.
Isaac, are you all right?
Great.
Hey, thanks for putting up with Robert. You know, he's not been himself.
Norton just thinks I'm trouble in a couple of ways. But you need me for the mission, and that's why I'm here. That plus, well, frankly, I hope...
Ellie, is that Isaac? Great. Great. You two having a nice little chat?
Look, he just called to say he got the furnace going. He's on his way back now. Isaac, I'll see you soon.
And here's my reaction to just Robert being Robert.
The thing is, like, I don't mind that Isaac dated Ellie and then broke up. I think you could have very easily told a good story, but why does it need to be it's like, oh, she's a new boyfriend? Why? Why do we need this? I don't like this suit. I'm changing back to the other one. It's annoying me.
Good stuff, gameplay Croc. There's a reason why you play the games. But now Isaac plays around with the pressure and some pumps, plays around with pressure and pumps it into the Necro to increase the internal temperature to allow us to actually enter it because it's dead, so, you know, we need to be able to enter it. But now we head up to grab a blueprint to make a sensor gun, and guess what? We run around again, finding all these different parts to make the sensor gun. God, I am seeing a really bad pattern here. Anyway, look at these guys killing themselves. How fun. Seems the Unitologists are also completely losing it, and their so-called savior and divine intervention is actually just some sort of complete insanity that is now infecting them. This is all just one big fetch quest, by the way, and you have a big action set piece with the Charger guys from Dead Space 2. They get one shot by my Seeker rifle, so it was very easy, but collecting all the parts, we can now return to the large Necro, build the probe gun, make our way inside the large Necro. And this is with the help of Robert and this funny looking cage. I'm sure nothing bad is going to happen, but we enter, we collect 3 signals, or we shoot 3 nodes within the Necro to obtain a signal that will allow us to reach the Nexus, as this will act as our guide. With us fighting a bunch of kids and having the average reaction of a vapor not getting a hit of their vape for 15 minutes, we are finally allowed to exit the large Necro, and we can now go back to the cage and escape. But Norton has a different plan regarding the cage itself.
Norton, open the cage.
No.
What?
If you want to die here, now's your chance. I'm taking control of this mission again.
Hey, where you going?
Saving Ellie. Norton! Norton!
Yes. Norton has betrayed Isaac and is now going to try take Ellie back home, stating that we are kind of forcing her to be here, even though us coming here was Ellie's idea and her plan, and she seems to be the one that's convincing us more and more to stay. Honestly, Isaac just wanted to save Ellie. I'm sure if Isaac got Ellie, he would have just left. But no, Ellie is the one that wants to keep going further and further, so this is completely out of character for Robert, because he should understand Ellie's intentions, because guess what? They're dating. Normally people, when they are dating, they are able to read each other pretty well. It's almost as if these characters are almost not in a relationship, and it makes almost no sense. But yeah, Robert runs off, leaves us in the fucking cage, but guess what? Isaac has kinesis, so we can just fucking unlock the cage very easily. And also guess what? Danik's here now.
You wouldn't believe the trouble you've saved me.
Nice work.
What? Well, here he is. The marker killer, Isaac Clarke. And here we are. The marker homeworld. You know, I must admit, I almost didn't believe such a place existed. But thanks to your friend, Norton, I finally found it.
That's how they followed us through shock space.
Well, he is a bright one.
All he wants is Isaac. Carver, the rest of us can go home.
Deluded
it. Hey, you've got me. Let the others go.
It's revealed that, oh my god, Norton betrayed us by working with Danik to kill Isaac. Holy shit, who could have seen this twist coming that the random boyfriend that's a bit jealous sells us out to Danik to try get his girlfriend to go home? What the fuck were these writers smoking with Norton? Norton's character just, it's not a character you like. It's not even a fun character to watch. It's not like a fun villain. It's just such a boring villain. But yeah, anyway, Danik starts revealing his whole plan that he's going to kill everyone and not spare anyone, including the promise that he made to Norton. Who could have guessed? Evil guy doesn't stick to the plan and basically betrays everyone. Who could have guessed that? Not me. But guess what? Now everyone counterattacks and somehow Danik escapes with Carver not shooting him even though he had a fucking gun. I can't even like explain this and like say, oh, it's because of this. No, Carver just refused to shoot Danik, and for some reason Isaac threw the most shitty grenade ever at him, so Danik gets away. And yeah, guess what? More combat sequence later and a big boss fight with a big boy, which involves us getting eaten at one point. What the fuck? We escape the giant beast only to be put into the jaws of Norton.
Whoa. You made us come down here. You encouraged her. Now look where we are. Between Danik shooting at us and whatever the fuck that was, what chance have we got?
You betrayed us!
I tried to save us. You are the real problem here, Clark. But not anymore.
Captain!
Stand down, Sergeant. This is all your fucking fault. She doesn't love you.
This entire sequence is about 20 minutes, and it is fucking insane how much actually happens, and clearly how much the writers have just gone off the rails now. Danik surviving that encounter makes no fucking sense. Carver, he's a military guy. This fucker would have been shot within 2 seconds after the first guy was shot. There's no reason Danik should still be alive. Next up, Norton. Norton's character is so shit, and it means that Norton's death is just not good. It's meant to be this big character changing moment where Isaac kills Norton, he kills this man that's close to Ellie, and it's meant to sort of create a rift, but it just falls flat. And the reason for that is because it's almost forgotten about immediately. Norton was being completely difficult and honestly justified with Isaac killing him. Norton was becoming a threat to Isaac's own safety, so it makes sense that fucking Isaac would kill him. Even fucking Norton's co-worker, Carver, wasn't backing him up. That just says everything. Carver's character is fucking weird if you're playing in single player, but in co-op, it actually develops a lot more and makes more sense why he sides with Isaac. He becomes way more friendly with Isaac, and they sort of have this sort of back and forth about being two people that have a lot of trauma and guilt that they feel because of the people they've lost. They bond over grief. But yeah, here it's weird, but it's fine, honestly. It makes sense with the context of co-op, but in solo, it's terrible. But yeah, Carver doesn't even give a rat's ass that you just killed his boss, I think it's his boss. We just move on, and eventually we regroup with Ellie, and she's a bit upset about it, but not that upset about it. She gets over it within like 10 minutes, and honestly, just whatever. Ellie moves on from it so fast, so guess what we're gonna do? We're just gonna move on from it and completely forget about it, and not mention it ever again. We're going to act like Robert never fucking existed, because guess what? The game just completely forgets about him. Norton could have been this great character that they could have built up, and it could have been this big moment where Isaac had to kill him, but he feels a lot of guilt about it. But the problem with doing that, Isaac has killed so many fucking people now, mainly the Unitologists, that he feels no remorse about taking human life. I could be mistaken, but in Dead Space 2, Isaac for the first time took a human life. And it was this big moment at the end of the game. Yes, he killed other humans at another time, but it's more indirectly. At the end of the game, he finally shoots Tideman. I could be completely wrong, but I'm really trying to use my memory here without looking stuff up, because I want to build this point. But the point is, Norton was a character that didn't need to be killed. Tideman in Dead Space 2, he needed to die. He was a threat to the world and everything, you get the point. But Norton was just a jealous boyfriend that kind of just got in this spat with Isaac, and they could have very easily solved it better. So Isaac killing him could have been this big moment where he's like, fuck, I just killed an innocent guy who was only helpful really, but I just didn't like him. Norton being this massive arse just doesn't add anything, and it makes his death feel more justified than I think it shouldn't have been. I think Norton should have just been very helpful for the entire game, but there should have been that sort of underlying of sort of jealousy with how Ellie and Isaac were interacting throughout the game, how close they were. But him being this like overtly like dude bro arsehole, I don't care. Isaac doesn't even care, so why should I care that he died? So again, we're just gonna move on. Honestly though, I think the best way I can sum up Norton's death is this.
Now there are only 4 of us left. I can't do this.
And we leave you behind. If you can't...
Honestly, I'd given up at this point. This game was fucking a comedy now. But let's ascend this cliff face. The climbing sequences, by the way, I don't like them. I think they're really boring, and I just think they're kind of lazy. I don't know. It might just be me, but I just didn't really enjoy these like ascending sequences, and even the descending parts. They just felt awkward. But yeah, Ellie complains about Isaac not helping her, and Norton was the only one that would help her, but he didn't want to complete the mission, and this whole line of thought is confusing and doesn't make sense because Ellie is saying something that's not true because Isaac is the one that's helping her the most with this mission now, and Norton was all about just running away, so I don't really get what she's trying to entail. It just seems to me that it's an emotional ramble. It doesn't make sense, and I think that's the point. It's meant to show that Ellie is kind of just being unreasonable now. Yes, her boyfriend died, but you don't care. No one cares. Anyway, a really difficult combat encounter later, we have to fix up a lift to allow the rest of the group up the cliff to get back to us. But also, Ellie now talks about why did Robert attack us and her not being able to understand it, and Isaac explains everything, saying how he was jealous and he just felt like Isaac was the problem and the reason that all these bad things were happening, and Ellie just accepts it. She's just, yeah, that's fine, and it's all hunky-dory. The whole lovers, it was solved with a bullet and some mansplaining. I can't make this shit up, I don't get it. With us now bringing the lift up the cliff, I just want you to watch this and just see how obvious this fucking death was.
See, that wasn't so bad.
Not bad. I was crying the whole way. Just get me some solid ground under my...
This is honestly the dumbest group interaction I have ever seen in my fucking life. From the woman taking a fucking year to get off the bloody elevator with Isaac physically struggling to keep it up. Why did she take so long? To the whole group standing around arguing as the cliff is fucking collapsing, to how Isaac's saying that he could save her, how if he just had a bit more time. Motherfucker, you fought that spider thing twice now, and you haven't been able to kill it. How the fuck are you gonna save this woman when it's right in its, like, talons? It's just, like, completely out of character, and I just don't like it. This, I think, is the main issue a lot of people have, are these sort of moments in Dead Space 3. They just completely just don't make sense, and it's almost like the most roundabout way to kill the character. I don't understand why this scene is so long. They should have just had the fucking lift just full, and I think that would have been way more effective and way more shocking than what it is in the game. But guess what? We now get into the boss fight with Spider again, and we finally kill it, and then we ascend up a cliff, and we are now embraced by the woman whose boyfriend, by the way, died 30 minutes ago, and these two look like they're about to fucking do something despicable. This honestly is so fucking weird. I don't get it. Her boyfriend, whom she said she loved, died 20 minutes ago, and she's already moved on completely and gone back to Isaac. I don't get it. People don't act like... Do people act like this? Am I the crazy one? Maybe I am crazy. Maybe I am just like completely out of fucking whack. But this, to me, is just so fucking weird for a character to do and makes no lick of sense. Ellie should be mourning for ages throughout this game about Robert's death, but she don't give a rat's ass. It's like the most odd character behavior, and it's genuinely like character assassination for Ellie's character. Ellie, in my opinion, I know some people don't like her, in Dead Space 2 was a highlight of the game for me. She was a great character in Dead Space 2 that mirrored Isaac's entire story and narrative and arcs. But in this, holy shit, she is just a typical love interest. It is so fucking surface level, and it is so fucking lazy. It's terrible. Genuinely is terrible, and it is a reason I don't like Dead Space 3 story. It's because of what they've done to Ellie. Ellie, honestly, is probably my second favorite Dead Space character, and they've done this to her, which, fuck you now. But guess what? We now get split up from Carver and Ellie, and we have to find our own way around, but you might notice all the marker-like structures sticking out of the floor and the mountain, and Danik's still here as well, so guess what, we have to kill more fucking Unitologists. Eventually though, we do regroup with them, again in a lab with a Rosetta who has information we need to get out of her brain. But she's in chunks, so we need to run all around the facility and collect her parts again, putting her back together Humpty Dumpty style. Again, a very long fucking fetch quest. We run all over the shop, and guess what? Rosetta is not a human, and Carver has a rather interesting point.
Well, here she is. Meet Rosetta.
Where's her face?
She doesn't have a face. It's not even a she. It's an it.
How have they just realized that?
What? What does that mean?
What does he mean? What does that mean? It's an alien.
This line, honestly, is just so fucking funny to me and just out of place. The fact that Carver states, what does that mean when Isaac says it's an alien? Motherfucker, you know what an alien is. What do you mean it's an alien? That makes no lick of sense. I don't get it. It's just a stupid question for the sake of asking a stupid question. Anyway, they now activate it and they get a fun little vision, which shows convergence occurring and a moon forming from all the aliens basically converging in on the marker. But when the Nexus is activated, it freezes the planet and stops the moon from forming, and it's left the planet Tau Volantis in the state that it is now, preventing the moon from spreading further. The moons are like the final form of the Necros, so this allows the Necros to get off the planet they're on and then basically infect other planets, the moons. So Isaac now realizes that they were entirely wrong and they should not turn the device off. They need to leave it on or destroy the moon somehow.
Oh no. No, we've got it all wrong. This isn't the marker homeworld. The aliens, they found the markers just like us, and it spread. It consumed them. It pulled their bodies into the sky to form the final stage. Oh my God, the moon. The moon is the source of the marker signal, not the machine. The moon is convergence. The aliens, they built the machine to freeze the planet, to keep the moon from becoming whole. If the machine shuts down, everything thaws, and convergence has resumed, not just here, but everywhere the markers have spread.
But guess what? Danik's here again, and he has a gun again. With him now taking the key away, he now wants to turn off the Nexus because he now realizes this will achieve his goal. So if Isaac wasn't sitting there fucking yapping his ass off, Danik might not have actually realized this. But yeah. Again, Danik somehow gets counterattacked and basically has to flee. But guess what? There's this gas in the room which sets people on fire. I don't know if it's meant to be fire or gas or something else, but it sets people on fire. We need to escape, but Ellie gets trapped, and guess what? Oh no, she's going to die in the thing because she can't make it and it's moving too fast.
Ellie, come on! Ellie!
It's no good. It's moving too fast. Isaac, do it. Just do it. Isaac! I love you.
Spoiler alert, she doesn't die, but Isaac believes she does die. He gets very torn up about it, and with him saying that
She's all I got.
his only reason to live. What the fuck do you mean? Did we just completely forget the entire arc of the last game about Isaac moving on from his grief and anger at himself and being able to live for a future for himself? Isaac's entire arc was realizing that he doesn't need to live for another person. His life wasn't defined by Nicole. He could move on and build his own life up. Him now saying that his only reason to live is for Ellie, it's a backwards character development. It's gone backwards. Isaac is now in the same state he was in Dead Space 1 when he realized Nicole had died. It's terrible, genuinely. But Isaac is now so angry that he is on a warpath, and with Carver we start to chase after Danik. And man, what ensues is a shit ton, and I mean a shit ton, of fighting and shooting and diving and cover-based shooting and shooting people's heads off and explosions and action set pieces. It is just too much to remember and go over. You remember when this game was a horror game? You remember that? When it was like this atmospheric, claustrophobic, environmental storytelling masterclass of a horror game? Yeah, fuck that, it's Gears of War now. Eventually though, we catch up with Danik with him being on an elevator, so we chase him down the thing with the rappelling feature. Eventually though, we start to see a very, and I mean very different location, the city of the ancient alien race that once lived on Tau Volantis. Honestly, I actually quite like this area. It's a cool looking area, it's very distinct and actually quite atmospheric. I quite like it, and I would have preferred if the entire game took place within this city. But again, there is too many action set pieces, but we also learn a bit about the Brethren moons themselves, which are, as I stated, the final form of the necromorphs. They all come together and it allows them to spread their influence to other planets. But we also find a machine that is able to destroy the moon. It's the same machine that is able to activate the Nexus, but you can set it up in a different way that it destroys it. So we need to catch Danik, get the key, configure the machine to how we need it, and then destroy the moon. Pretty simple. So where is this machine?
My God. Holy shit. This must be ground zero.
And that must be the machine.
So I guess this is it, huh?
Yeah. This is it.
I need you to promise me something. If I don't make it, you'll get this done, right?
We'll get this done, Carver. You and me.
Yeah, but if I don't... I helped get us this far. And that's close enough for all this to count, right?
Count for what?
For... I don't know, just... all the bad I've done.
Oh, shut up, Carver. You're a good man.
I alienated my son. Wrecked my family. Isaac, I killed Santos. Is that what a good man does?
Good men mean well. You just don't always end up doing well.
This one scene, I really like it, honestly, and to me, it showed what Dead Space 3's entire story was trying to tell. A story about good men who end up doing bad things in hard situations. Not intentionally, but because their hands are forced and humans make mistakes when sometimes they kind of try not to make any sort of decision. I really like it. It's just a shame just how messy this game is and just how convoluted the overall story is as well. But now Isaac talks to Danik, and Danik has gone full cultist insano mode, now believing the mark is the work of some divine power, then it's the next destined step for humanity's evolution. So we give chase to him, and that means, yes, more gunfights. But Isaac and Carver eventually catch up, ambush him, and get the key, but the pair of them now fall down further into the city. Again, I really like the dark, grungy area of this game, and this entire next section is about Isaac making his way to the machine, kind of like Dead Space 2 in a way, and this is in order to destroy the moon. Honestly though, not a lot actually happens story-wise. It's just a lot of fighting, a lot of item getting, and a lot of thing fixing. There is no character development, but there is some pretty cool flying sequences though. But eventually we get to the machine, and as we're about to finally put the key in and destroy everything, Danik returns, and guess what? Ellie's alive. I didn't see that coming, and this entire scene is so fucking odd to me. So I'm just gonna let it play out, and I hope you can see why it is so weird.
Or I will kill her!
No! Isaac, what are you doing? You got a second chance.
If he turns off the machine, we're all dead. Her? Us? Everyone.
Don't let it all go dark, Isaac. There's more than one kind of right.
Betrayal.
Yeah, for some reason Carver gives Danik the key. He activates it immediately, the machine.
I've done it. I've finally done it. The darkness is in there. Let the evolution begin.
And now Ellie and Isaac have this bittersweet goodbye, and Isaac and Carver stay back to destroy the machine. It's honestly odd. A lot of people say that Carver's actions here is like completely ruins everything and is like against his character, which in a way it is, because Carver should be the character that believes in doing anything to prevent what is happening, even if it means killing Ellie. Imagine if Carver just shot Ellie and Danik here and just that was the ending of the game. Just how fucking insane that would be. But no, we have this like fucking weird ending where Carver just does something completely out of character for himself. But yeah, it now devolves into this absolutely bonkers boss fight with the entire planet, with the entire moon coming alive. Actually a kind of cool boss fight, I can't lie, despite it being very easy. But defeating the boss and turning the machine off, the pair now destroy the moon and shit ensues. And this is played like Isaac and Carver died. And we now see Ellie in orbit being upset, basically saying if Carver or Isaac are there, but she now realizes that they succeeded because the Nexus signal turns off, and she now heads back to Earth. And the game cuts to black. But don't worry, at the end of the credits we hear
Ellie? Ellie?
indicating that Isaac somehow survived that entire ordeal. Now, this ending is nowhere near as good as Dead Space 2. I mean, nowhere near. They're like complete opposites. And honestly, we did not need a fake out death for this game to have an impactful ending. It makes no sense. If Isaac actually died here, Dead Space 2's ending would just be completely thrown out the window, because Isaac realized that he did have a reason to live. He had himself. He wanted to keep going because he wanted to live. That was the whole arc of Dead Space 2. So if he dies in 3 to sacrifice himself to destroy everything, it makes no fucking sense, honestly. But this isn't all of Dead Space 3's story. Dead Space 3 also received an expansion called Awakened. Now, Awakened is actually pretty good, honestly. Starting in a fun way with this pretty cool intro.
What the fuck you doing, man?
Carver.
What are you doing in my apartment?
I like it. It shows Awakened is more psychological than Dead Space 3 was, but we have Isaac and Carver still on Tau Volantis, and they are suffering very badly from hallucinations brought on from the Brethren's moon. So Isaac and Carver start to fight their way off Tau Volantis, with them hunting for a shuttle to use to escape the planet. But as they make their way through the planet to find it, visions get worse and worse, with Isaac seeing things which aren't actually there. These hallucinations are, I think, what Carver sees in the co-op of Dead Space 3, enemies which aren't actually there but you have to fight them. Honestly, Awakened is probably the best part of Dead Space 3, and it is very much about Isaac and Carver being very confused and constantly arguing, slowly realizing that they don't trust one another.
Maybe we didn't.
Well, I'd know if I was dead, man.
Man, I don't even know what dead means anymore. Are we necromorphs? Is this what they feel like after the marker reanimates them?
Could you be any more crazy? Hell no, we are not necromorphs. We killed the thing that makes them. At least we don't have to put up with that shit anymore.
Yeah. No more moon. No more marker signal. No more necromorphs. At least that's on our side.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's really good stuff and plays into the horror of not even being able to trust yourself. It's a good horror experience and was like a breath of fresh air after beating Dead Space 3 for me. But there is still a lot of combat, and I mean a lot of it. Most of this DLC is combat, so there's that as well. But also there's some great environmental storytelling, with the Unitologists even freaking out, talking about something being hungry and coming for them, and occasionally we get the hallucinations of the moons, and we can even find Norton's necromorphed fucking body and kill it, so even that's kind of cool. But with Isaac and Carver seeing a bunch of shuttles fly off, they start to get a bit worried about not actually being able to find one to escape, but 10 minutes later they find one and fix it up to allow them to get off planet. Of course, there's a whole action set piece along with this, but I'll be honest, I can't be bothered. They got off planet, but the ship has no shock drive, so they can't jump to another solar system. So they need to head to the Terra Nova to find a shock drive, and this is our main stage for the DLC, with some new enemies, the cultists, who have gone completely loco. Honestly, this part is great. It's the one time that Dead Space 3 actually did bring me into the world and did immerse me a lot. It reminded me a lot of what Dead Space 1 and 2 were so good at, with these sort of claustrophobic, more atmospheric, just dark, grungy places that you just had to walk through and just shoot things that moved. It's great. Honestly, Awakened does have some great moments to me. But throughout the pair's mission, they slowly start to not trust each other more and more, with Isaac believing that they should not head home because Brethren Moons ask him to guide them to Earth, obviously stating that if they go home, the moons will follow them. But Carver thinks this is stupid and he wants to go home, so they argue, and eventually this really cool boss fight where you have to fight Carver, and I'm thinking co-op, you fight each other, which is also really cool. But after the fight, Isaac realizes that he was being manipulated by the moons, and they already knew where Earth was, so they were just trying to stop Isaac from heading back to Earth because he was the only one that could stop the moons. But with the pair now on the same page about them needing to return home, they quickly retrieve the shock drive that they needed, and they power it up with the reactor on the ship, and you have this fun little puzzle, and they plug it in. And now we can actually head back to Earth.
Saved by aliens again. Just hit the damn button.
Carver. Psst, hey, Carver. We're almost there.
Oh, we made it?
Yeah.
I believe.
D-shocking to Earth space in 3, 2, 1.
Earth Orbital Control, this is Isaac Clarke aboard the CMS Terra Nova requesting clearance, over.
Are you sure you got the right channel? This is over 200 years old.
Yeah, no, I changed it over, right? Trust me, it's right.
Earth Gov Command, this is Sergeant John Carver. Do you read me? Is anyone there? It's weird.
United Mining Traffic Flow, do you copy? Lunar Flight Control, this is CMS Terra Nova. Does anyone read us out here?
So yeah, the Brethren moons got to Earth first, and I'm sure the next Dead Space would have been about the moons having destroyed Earth and us having to basically fight and try to get rid of them and destroy them. Awakened, it doesn't have any good character development or anything like that. It's just a very good environmental, atmospheric sort of horror experience that I genuinely do believe is worth the money to play it, but that's only if you really love Dead Space like I do. It's entirely the strongest part of Dead Space 3, in my opinion, but if you want my suggestion, if you yourself want to play Dead Space 3, is try to play Dead Space 3 in co-op. I think this game adds a lot more if you play it in co-op with a friend that also likes sort of these kind of games. Still, even in co-op, Dead Space 3 is nowhere near as good as Dead Space 2 or even Dead Space 1, but it's still an improvement from what the solo experience is and just how fucking bad the game is, because having a good friend play a horror game with you is always good fun. Now, throughout this video, I've stated a lot of issues about Dead Space 3 and issues I have with the game itself in general. So you might ask, well, Croc, what would you have changed about Dead Space 3 to fix it? Well, honestly, everything, but if I could only change one thing to kind of rework the game a bit, that would be to just remove Isaac and Ellie from the story. Remove everything that is related to the past games and make Dead Space 3 entirely a new chapter for Dead Space. In my opinion, the story should have just focused on new characters. I think Dead Space 3 needed new characters to tell a new story and arc. Isaac, as I stated, just retreaded the same arcs that he went through in Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2. So it just feels so pointless. It feels like we've gone backwards since Dead Space 2. And honestly, that character is already in the game. Carver, honestly, if given the chance with another new character that could play into his story as well in some way, and you could have built more on the idea that Awaken brings to the game with not trusting one another and the horror of not even being able to trust yourself, I think you could honestly have made a great game here and a great story. Kind of think something like John Carpenter's The Thing, but it's a co-op game where you can't trust if the person you're fighting with is actually your co-op buddy. It might be a disguised necromorph. This is like way above like my pay grade of what I can actually feasibly understand and explain from a game design standpoint, but I honestly think doing this and really doing something different with Dead Space 3 would have been the way to go. Also, if you had both characters be military background people, that would explain the more actiony gameplay. It explains the difference in how they fight and how combat is and everything. But it's also, this simple change of just removing Isaac and Ellie would clean up a lot of the problems that people have. It would remove the fucking love triangle problem that everyone seems to have about this game, and it would allow a character like Danik to then take center stage as the key antagonist. I think we should have focused way more on Danik. Make some EarthGov sector, like this elite soldier unit, basically tasked with hunting down the leader of the Circle, the Unitologist that we fight in the game. Have them hunt him down and it leads them to Tau Volantis, but they get pulled into this conspiracy with the Nexus and everything, and they discover at the end of the game the Brethren moons, and them being there has led them to Earth. So they need to now contact Isaac, because he is someone that understands how to destroy the markers, and it can tie into this Dead Space 4, which would allow Isaac to naturally come back to the story. Not dragged in kicking and screaming, but because he actually has a role to play. He wants to live, so he needs to fight for it. It would make such a more natural story, and honestly, I think it'd be way more interesting to see other characters interact with the markers as opposed to Isaac. We've only really seen Isaac be influenced from our perspective by the marker, well, and Carver as well, but I think it would be so much more interesting to see more perspectives in the Dead Space universe. But honestly, this is a simplified idea. It's an idea that I came up with in 10 minutes, and honestly, I would change a shit ton more about Dead Space 3, but again, I'm not a game designer, I'm not a game developer, I'm not even a writer, so don't take this as like actually good advice, but this is just what I would have preferred to see, because I believe Isaac should have not fucking returned after Dead Space 2. I think that should have just been the end of his story completely. But yeah, there's a shit ton more I would change, and I would love to hear what you guys would have liked to see change within Dead Space 3. Honestly though, I think EA should just sell Dead Space to an actual good developer that actually wants to make good games. I don't know what developer that is, because almost all of them are terrible now. But yeah, that'd be fun. It'd be nice to see Dead Space actually get the ability to live. divisive. But now let's pull back and come full circle, because Dead Space 3, for all of its messiness, actually gave me something to walk away with. What was its story really trying to say underneath everything to me? And no, I am not going to be able to replicate the monologue from my Dead Space 2 video, because that just happened. There was a very weak script for the ending, but I just started going off script and started ranting. I was speaking from the heart, and maybe that's why it felt so raw. And I'm not going to be able to do that for this, honestly. But I do think Dead Space 3 deserves something from me to try pull out of it. I always try to do it with every game I play, so let's try to do it with Dead Space 3. At its core, to me, Dead Space 3 is about letting go again. But this time, it's not about letting go of trauma or grief or self-doubt or hatred like in Dead Space 2. It's about letting go of control, obsession, or the belief that we alone can fix everything. It's about Isaac learning that his identity doesn't have to revolve around being the only one that can destroy the markers and the necros and everything, and that there's also more to live for than just killing the markers. And that there's more to live for than just some sort of righteous mission. It's about understanding that trying to do good doesn't always mean that you'll succeed, but it doesn't mean it's not worth trying. Throughout the game, Isaac wrestles with the idea that his only purpose is to basically be with Ellie or destroy the markers. He says as much multiple times throughout the game. He's convinced that if he's not doing these things, he has no value, that his life is over. And even Carver has this as well. He hunts Danik because he wants to avenge his family. But this mindset itself traps these characters. Ellie herself was supposed to be Isaac's way out in Dead Space 2, someone who gave him something else to live for past Nicole, but she was not meant to be his reason to live. But in Dead Space 3, obviously that relationship has fallen apart, and he somehow went back to how he was, but Isaac still chose to fight, not because he was chosen to do it, that he's the only one that can do it, but because he knew that's what he needed to do. He knew he wanted to save Ellie from what was happening. It was a good thing to do. But then there's Carver. He, to me, is the unsung emotional heart of this game. Despite his iffy writing at times, Carver lost his wife and child. He's a soldier who doesn't know how to process his grief except through violence and hunting the man that did it. But when he and Isaac start working together, something changes. They both see their own pain reflecting in each other, and there's a moment, it's subtle but powerful, where Carver stops seeing the mission as just orders and starts seeing it as a chance for redemption, to mean something, to matter. He even states at one point, maybe all this is just a second chance. You know, that line hits because that's what Dead Space 3 really feels like. A story about second chances. For Isaac, for Carver, for everyone. Even for a character like Serrano who dies trying to finish his life work and figure out the Nexus, he leaves it behind for people to find, to carry on, for a second chance at defeating the markers. Even Buckle, who sacrifices himself not because he's scared, but because he wants his life to mean something. He sacrifices himself to help Isaac, to give Isaac a second chance to find the group again. But there's also a moral ambiguity that runs through the game. Not everyone who dies in the game is evil. Danik, as fanatical as he is, and honestly kind of evil, he genuinely believes he is helping humanity to achieve transcendence. He thinks convergence is salvation, and that's a terrifying part of the game itself. But it's also very human. It's a reminder that the greatest threats to humanity aren't always monsters and whatever else that we fucking don't like in life. It's often the ideologies that are twisted by fear, grief, or hope gone wrong. And that's where Dead Space 3 introduces one of its more nuanced ideas. Doing the right thing doesn't always feel right. Sometimes doing good things means making hard, ugly choices. Sometimes it means losing people. Sometimes it means sacrificing yourself, but it still matters and it's still the right thing to do. Because even if you fail, the intent behind it, the compassion and the courage to do that is what defines you. Isaac, to me, says it completely best. Good men mean well, we just don't always end up doing well. That line sums up the entire game for me. Maybe the whole series as a whole, honestly. It's not a triumphant, heroic quote. It's tired and it's real. It understands that good intentions don't guarantee happy endings, but they still matter. You see it with Buckle. It's not the dying that scares me. It's not making a difference before I do. Or with Serrano. I had hoped to be here to witness the saving part. A final act by the natives. A sacrifice to save us all. You see it in the player's journey. Constantly fighting, falling, surviving, and choosing to keep going. Because even if you don't save everyone in the group that you start with, maybe if you just saved someone, then maybe you did enough. And I think that's honestly what really stuck with me for Dead Space 3 specifically, because let's be honest, we all just want to find some sort of purpose in life. We want to know that we mattered to people, that we helped in some way, that we didn't just float through life unnoticed. I know I felt like that for a very long time, like I needed to find some calling, some big thing that would give my life meaning. But Dead Space 3 ironically reminded me that purpose doesn't have to be some grand destiny, it can be something very small, something human, choosing to show compassion, choosing to forgive, choosing to keep going when it's easier to give up. Choosing to try, even when you're scared to fail. You don't have to be a planet-saving engineer or a soldier with nothing left to lose. You just have to choose to make a difference, even just a small one. Be kind, be someone people can lean on, be someone who listens. That's enough, because that's a good change. And that can be everything to someone. We're all humans, we all make mistakes, but that also means we all have the capacity to help, to change and to grow. So maybe that's the real message of Dead Space 3, that in a world full of death, fear and chaos, there's still room for hope. And if there's hope, there's purpose. And if there's purpose, then maybe, just maybe, we're not lost after all. Hello lads and lasses. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, comment or dislike if you disliked it. And of course, thank you to all channel members, Marty Morris, Chelsea and Tyler, the Game Scavenger, and Not Saber. All of your support is greatly appreciated. Anywho, I don't really have a lot to say for this message. Thanks, I guess, for the love on the past 2 videos. It's nice to see, and next video, I think I might do Dying Light, as it's coming up to my 1-year channel anniversary now, so I want to do a couple of videos that are a bit more special. Dying Light is one of the games that I spoke about in my very first video I ever made, which is unlisted on my channel. So I want to kind of do a bigger video on it, so it might take me a bit longer to do that because I want to want to go full hog with it and go sort of really in depth with it, so that might take me a while, but it depends how I'm feeling as I'm making the video. But also after that I want to do a Dark Souls video, hopefully on the 1-year anniversary itself, which is on July 17th, so that should be fun. But also Black Souls 2 will definitely be done sooner rather than later. The Black Souls video it's a video. It's been very popular. Of course, there is subject matters in that which are divisive, but I really enjoyed making the video, playing the game and everything, and from what I've heard, Black Souls 2 is just significantly better, so I really do want to play it and also make a video on it. But again, that depends on if I feel ready to make the video and if I feel ready to actually play the game, because it is significantly longer. But that is definitely enough waffling from me. I won't take any more of your time. See you around. Crocodile.